this workshop by thanking the great support of the Netherlands Internet Governance Forum and the Women's Cybersecurity Foundation in the Netherlands. They have organized this truly international, interdisciplinary, and multi-stakeholder approach workshop. Now, as panel moderator of this workshop, allow me to introduce myself and shortly present the subject, followed by the presentation of each of our panelists. And afterwards, we will have a social engineering sort of demonstration exercise. And finally, we will start with the panel answering the questions that we bring today to the table in relation to sextortion. So my name is Catherine Garcia van Hostraten, Digital Governance, Information Technology, and Cybersecurity Law at the Center of Expertise on Cybersecurity in the Hague University of Applied Sciences, and also member of the Women in Cybersecurity Foundation in the Netherlands. Online sextortion is based on non-consensual pornography and refers to sexually explicit images and videos disclosed without consent and for not legitimate purpose. Involves footage obtained by hidden cameras, stolen or leaked photos and recordings, social media manipulation, and blackmailing, trading communications, computer hacking, use of malware, and keyloggers. It is a violation of privacy and a form of often gender and intersectional sexual abuse, from objections based on negative perceptions of nudity or displays of sexual conduct. The current architecture of internet and social media enable increased forms of exposure. These vulnerabilities leads to scalability, replicability, and searchability for private information. Although existing privacy-preserving mechanisms have been developed and improved over the years, they are still not helping users in distinguishing self-disclosure behavior that might put them into risk. In the confidentiality paradigm, technologies are inspired by definition of privacy as the right to be let alone and are aimed to create an individual's autonomous sphere free from intrusions. The confidentiality and control paradigm, though, has a main flaw, which is that places a strong focus on security, but not too much attention in enabling transparency and online identity construction. This has been already raised in several workshops in the course of this week here at the Internet Governance Forum. Although privacy contributes in a big part to the construction of one's identity, both in the individual and collective level, this is the notion of privacy underlying self-disclosure activities. Therefore, we believe technologies located in the practice paradigm shares such an understanding of privacy and pursue making information flows more transparent through feedback and awareness. Considering the Internet's role as a forum for public discourse, it is clearly undisputed that cyber harassment, such as extortion, interferes with expression, even if it's perpetrated via expression. Given that it is profoundly damaging to free speech and privacy rights of the people targeted, sextortion is growing concern and needs a coordinated multi-stakeholder efforts to bring about greater level of internet safety. Consequently, in this Internet Governance Forum Workshop 146 on sextortion, we aim to brainstorm over, on the one hand, alternate technological and behavioral approach, which is going to be the first track of questions we have for you today, for our panelists and for you to comment and react on. And on the other hand, adaptable and legal policies approaches and good practices countering sextortion that can be harnessed to keep up with technological advances. This will be addressed through the social engineering exercise that we have first, and therefore after through our panel discussion. Thank you. Now we will proceed to introduce ourselves. I already have done it, so I will pass the floor to my colleagues, members of the panel. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Alejandra Canton. I'm Security Director for GSEC Independiente Mexico. I'm System Engineer and expert in end-user behavior and awareness program. Thank you.
Is it on? Yeah. Hi, I'm Susanna Herring. I'm a ISOC IGF ambassador, a youth delegate from Turkey.
Hi, I'm Maria Cristina Capello. I work at Google here in the Mexico office. Oh, my bad.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hanan Boujami. I'm Senior Manager, Internet Governance Program with HIVOS.
Hello, my name is Nicholas. I'm a member of the Research Training Group in User-Centered Social Media in the University of Duisburg-Essen in Germany. And my research topic is self-disclosure in social media and privacy in social media.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jamila Venturini. I'm a researcher at the Center for Technology and Society at Fundação Getúlio Vargas in Rio.
Hello, good morning. My name is Arde Gerkens. I'm a senator from the Dutch Parliament. I'm also the managing director of the Expertise Bureau Online Child Abuse and president of InHope, the network of all hotlines.
All right, so we're going to start with Alejandra, who is going to explain a little social engineering exercise she has done over the course of the last 2 days.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. I want to start asking who we are, what we are, or better, what we are in the internet. The answer, we are dozens, hundreds, thousands of data regarding of our banking information, our health, our work, our friends, our vacations, our networks, and maybe our sexual activity, relations, and even our preference. It's a lot of information that needs to be protected, and needs to be protected because it's valuable. And it's valuable on money, and it's valuable on power. And not only for us, but also for a lot of people, for good or for worst. There's a lot of risk around information, and social engineering is one of them. Maybe the most important, because when sometimes intruders get the chances when there are genuine gaps in the security, well, they use it. But more often that we can guess, they get through because the human behavior, such as the natural human inclination to be helpful or because people are reckless about the consequences or being careless of the information. I know that most of the attendants now know about social engineering. After all, we are experts in so many subjects related, right? Well, during the past 2 days, we did an exercise with some of the participants of the forum, 53 to be exact. In a few words, what we did was that some of us work around the workshops, work around the different rooms. Without any badge, we take out this. And with any ideas, we ask some of the attendants to register in some regular white sheets with some printed column asking their names, their employees, where they work, and their email address. 46 didn't ask anything and gave us their information. 6 asked a little bit more, but with some small and useless answers, they gave us the information, and just one said, no, why? I don't want to give my information. I already gave it in the registration area. Imagine there are almost 98% of the people gave us their information. The conclusion of this is we are so expert and so protected with antivirus, firewalls, complex passwords, that we forget the basics. Do not trust the people you didn't know. So if this can happen to us, imagine what can happen to teenagers and not tech people. it's important to tell you that all the information that we collected was used just for this workshop and just for statistic purposes. It's already destroyed, and also all the emails accounts. So if one of you gave us the information, please, your information is safe. Well, back to our business. Social engineering uses human errors or weakness to gain access to any systems. Despite the layers of the defense security that we have implemented, I don't know, in hardware or software, the ultimate security wall is the human being. And if that person is distracted, the gates are wide open and the intruder takes control. And when the intruder gets control, some of the things that he or she can do is to get rights under your computer, access to your local information, access to the cloud information, access to send an emails, access to the social networks information, also post in your social networks, and so your personal information could allow criminals to open bank accounts, to get credit cards, passports, launder money, or also to make fraud, or even to being sextorted, because they have your information, your personal information. And this could be even worse in many ways to lose all the money on your bank accounts. So unfortunately, we are many documented successfully social engineering cases. And the only way to avoid it is to have an online-offline culture, being educated and promoting awareness programs. Thank you.
Now we will start with the panel discussion. As I announced it already, the first part concerns to the technical and behavioral track. And for this, we have a specific number of questions that will be addressed by, in the first place, Nicolas. And he already introduced himself. But a little reminder, Nicolas is Nicolas Diaz, fellow, PhD fellow at User-Centered Social Media, RTG, University of Duisburg-Essen, Germany.
Hello, everyone. Well, thank you, Catherine, for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. And basically, my research is on online self-disclosure. And I'll try to build a connection on what online self-disclosure means and how can it's related with sextortion. Well, basically, social network sites are places where people post and share diverse types of media content, of information, in order to get some benefit, like maintaining friendship, blogging, sharing photos, music, articles, etc. So the process of making the self known to others had been defined in 1958 by Gerard and Lassaco as self-disclosure. So this is basically in an offline context like we are now. So in the online context, that would be redefined as online self-disclosure. As I said before, there are benefits of self-disclosing. We maintain friendship. It's the key way of building social relationships. So when I'm talking about my interest, what I like, what I do not like, I can build an emotion and a tie with another person. However, when we do it in social media, we forget about that these places are not free of privacy breaches, like, for example, identity thief, stalking, information leakage, etc. And unfortunately, engaging in self-disclosure activities can bring negative consequences for the users that go beyond the problem of image. In the case of sextortion, perpetrators that get access to the profile of the victims can get their address, phone number, they can know about their interests, habits, their workplace, and therefore they can build a social profile out of their victims and start seducing the victims and engage with them. Unfortunately, these consequences are not part of the user's privacy concerns until they live it in the flesh. So why do we basically disclose more in an online context than in an offline context? Well, basically here it's, I know how many people are in this room, well, approximately, so I can regulate my speech. I can, I can do some self-censorship, and I can follow basic rules of information sharing. Unfortunately, these rules and this way of behavior is not the same in the online world. So we talk about our personal life, we talk about, for example, what I had for breakfast in the morning, or who I had a party yesterday and got drunk. And this information, it's often very sensitive and very private. The thing is that we, as users, are emotionally detached to our private data when has a digital support. So for example, if I lose my passport, my reaction will be visceral. I'm losing something that is very important for me. However, like Alejandra just showed in her experiment, we are very happy and willing to give away our data constantly, over and over again. And that's actually because computers are social actors, and therefore they modulate the way we perceive our own privacy and the way we perceive our private data online. So we are responsible as designers of media technologies, of software, of interfaces, of hardware, in the way people understand their privacy and live their everyday online privacy. We believe that, raising awareness, it's very important in order to users to realize how important their data is for them. There have been a lot of approaches on trying to do this. For example, some researchers of Carnegie Mellon tried to develop what they call the privacy nudges, and they tried to apply sentiment analysis to their posts on Facebook. So they were warning them if the post could be understood in a negative or in a positive way. So the user, for example, if the system was saying, okay, your post can be understood in a negative way, the user had the chance to, hold it and not post it at the end. Many of these approaches that are very interesting rely on very static approaches for awareness. This is, each one of us are different, each one of us understand privacy in a different particular way, and each one of us have different privacy needs and concerns. So in order to these approaches to succeed on engaging the users, they need to be adaptive. And we believe that if we consider users as individuals who could significantly benefit from learning about online privacy, this is like taking a more pedagogical approach and consider the user as a student of privacy literacy, we can get closer to raising awareness in the right way. So we have defined what is called an instructional awareness system, that its aim is to provide personalized feedback messages when detecting user disclosures. And consequently, we have defined what we call an instructional awareness software architecture, that it's, as I said before, prescribe the architectural components of such instructional awareness system. And this, as I said before, that has a pedagogical approach, resemble characteristics of intelligent tutoring systems. And these intelligent tutoring systems had been used before, and it's not something new, but they have been used as for academic purposes in academic environments. And these systems provide a learning environment to the student and try to give him feedback and assessment on learning a particular teaching topic. For example, SQL, the language for databases. And in order to generate this, the tutoring system contains a knowledge base divided into basically it stores domain knowledge about a topic that he's teaching, and database, the other part of the database records the user's performance. So if we think about it in terms of privacy, I can teach privacy to someone, but at the same time, in order to adapt the feedback and give the right guidance, I need to measure in some way the progress on how this person is learning this topic, or in this case, privacy. Um, uh, so we think that that can be a way of reducing excessive online self-disclosure. And we are, in my research training group, we are actively trying to make this happen, and this is our big goal for the next year and for the next years to come. And however, sextortion has other requirements, or we can, I mean, we are not, as I said before, this is more oriented to online self-disclosure. But a very important part of a very important aim on fighting sextortion is the generation of consent, because basically the perpetrators that are disclosing these pictures, disclosing these videos, do not have any consent on doing it, and it's a depth in our instructional awareness software architecture, and we as software developers on how to generate the right mechanisms for consent, for detecting consent. If someone is about to disclose a picture, we need to, double check, triple check if that person has consent over that information.
All right, so now we will break up to the panel for some comments and remarks or questions. So who would like to start? First our panel and then the participants, I'm sorry. Any questions on...
Hi, can you hear me? I know we don't have enough time. My name is Hanan Boujemi, just for the record. I would like to maybe ponder on a question relating to the terms of use, the existing terms of use that we have at the moment in various platforms, not only Facebook. Facebook is, we usually give it heat, but videos can be exchanged as well on WhatsApp and other services, and of course even Google Plus maybe. So I think it would be very interesting to hear from Google, for example, since you're representing that segment of the industry, on what kind of terms of use do you have at the moment to deal with this phenomenon?
Yeah, I just like to stipulate two things. First of all, the social engineering, that is really the way it works, at what we see at Sextortion, at our helpline. Because what they first do, they will actually, through all the information they get from you on the internet, contact you and build up a bond, the two of you together, and then they will suggest that you will have a conversation, for instance, on Skype, and where the actual sexual contact will take place, and then sextortion will lead out of that. So it's very good that you just showed us that social engineering is a very important part of this this terrible crime, actually. And I'm really looking forward to the results that Nicolas will bring us, because I think one of the problems with sextortion is also sending material you don't actually want other people to see. And what we know is that very young people, they don't have the ability to think about what they do. I mean, we older people always tell them, think twice, but they don't. So it would be really good if there would be a tool, if they were about to send it out, somebody would say, hey, well, do you really want this to go online? Do you know what happens? And I think it might be a useful tool in the sextortion especially. I think there's a great challenge on the other fields, because it's very hard to detect what kind of material you want to send out. But it's very interesting to see this technology arising.
So we have a space for a couple of questions. So please raise your hands and, yeah, first here and then, yeah. So first we have our panelists, then you, and I think you, and then.
Okay. I want to follow Arda's comments by mentioning research done in October 2015 about sexting and comparing youth behavior to adult behavior, and also how preventative measures, how it worked with the behavior of youth, and how did they stop sexting or they didn't. So I'm just quoting from the research. that letting young people know about the negative consequences is not very effective as discouragement. In fact, it's recently been shown to have the forbidden fruit effect. And so focusing on negative outcomes, prevention campaigns have been communicated to youth that sexting itself is wrong. And I think we can sometimes replace the word sexting here with maybe even, well, sextortion or excessive self-disclosure. Is wrong without recognizing the positive aspects of it. So this is likely to be ineffective because youth would not engage in sexting without any potential benefits, although it may not be obvious to us or adults in the first place. Instead, prevention campaigns should recognize that there are some positive aspects to it and make it clear that what needs to be prevented is only the negative aspects of it, not sexting itself. So the reason I'm quoting this is, well, as parents or people who interact with younger people, sometimes it has the exact negative effect to tell someone that, no, this is very bad and I ban you, I forbid you from doing this. So I think maybe a more lenient approach instead of telling people to, no, this is bad, don't do this, can be followed.
All right. So now we will give the floor to the first participant. Do you have a question?
Okay. Thank you. My name is Marcelo. I'm from Bolivia, but actually I work with security in the laboratory security in Brazil on the Camp University. We work with different kinds of malware, virus, and different problems similar for that. I think the principal problem is the case, try to capacitate the persons, the users, to understand the problem with these technologies. In the following years, we have a different problems with Internet of Things, on other technology that you will use. And the principal problem is that the user accept or not understand how to use, specifically the security. In this case, I don't know. I think the problem is one is Facebook, but the other problem is the application in Google, in Android, the problem of 0 days, problems, vulnerabilities in the system, the ransomwares, the malware, the botnets that try to keep your information. I think it's a very big problem, not only so with sextortion. Okay.
Thank you. That was exactly we were talking about, the awareness, the importance of the awareness programs, not exactly behavior, but also in the use of the technology, and also the online and offline culture, because sometimes you didn't aware of what are you doing offline that will be harmful in your online life. So it's basically that. To be aware and to be educated of what you are doing and the technology that you are using.
Thank you.
Thank you. The second question, please.
Yes. Yeah, my question is directed at the second speaker. A lot of the research that we've done in India shows that young people, when they self-disclose, or people of any age, particularly when they are using the internet for sexual expression, including sexting, have a pretty good idea of what they're doing. And so I was very curious about the concept of excessive self-disclosure that was up on the chart, because my sense is that people, when they use the internet for sexual purposes, which is very, very common nowadays, do assess many of the risks, and that perhaps the solution is to actually use safer sexting practices, etc. But so I'm not clear what excessive self-disclosure means, because I'm a little worried, to be honest, because it seems to blame the person for sort of disclosing too much of themselves.
Thank you for your question. Basically, as I said before, the rules of interaction in the online world differ tremendously from the offline world. And there's a very interesting paper from researchers of Carnegie Mellon. It's called I Regretted the Moment I Pressed Shared. So this is an empirical research on cases where people had reported, a bad experience online for having disclosing this personal and sensitive data. So these bad experiences can be certainly mapped to a certain attributes that the person had disclosed in that moment in time. So when I'm talking about excessive online self-disclosure, it's that when you start revealing and revealing more and more and more and more and more, the likelihood of some harm, it's increasing. So we have to find a way. That's my research about, so I'm spending a lot of time trying to decode to find out how to do it. How can we provide the right assessment? And of course, this should not be about a censorship for the user's activities. It should be in sync on the privacy needs and expectations of his or her online experience.
All right.
I think it's also important to make a distinguish between the two ways of sharing sharing sexual information on the internet. One is with consent, sexting, and there's a lot to be debate about it, how to do it, and whether you should do it or not do it, and anything. This could be a tool that help with them. Then you have the unconsensual, which is when you get into the sextortion, and this is, I cannot emphasize it more, a very, very serious crime. We don't, at this point, we are not even thinking of how serious this is. There are people killing themselves by the fact they're being sextorted. And it's huge, it's enormous. We have no idea. The things that we get to our helpline, they're only the tip of the iceberg, because most of the people, they will just pay the money that they are being asked. And I think that we have to also realize that the perpetrator who gets people to sextort themselves, they use that, what you just called the heat of the moment technique. It's not something you can really think about. It happens to you also because there's a lot of dopamine in your body. It's within minutes it has happened, and the video is out there. The perpetrator is extorting you, and this is, I think, therefore, something we should really look on how we can stop this, because it's like I said, a really serious crime.
The next question, yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Beatrice. I'm from Brazil. I am an anthropologist, and I study online security, especially connected to gender. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask Nicholas, but I think I could ask anyone. How do you see sextortion as being a form of gender violence? Because we have, at least in Brazil, statistically, it happens to girls and women. So we're not talking about any kind of violence or any kind of exposure. Or the consequences are not the same. They're very different, depending if you're a woman or a man. That's it. Thank you.
I may take this question if any of my colleagues want to also add something shortly, briefly. I do agree with the fact that it's definitely, and not only a gender sort of phenomenon, but also, and most importantly, we have discussed it within our group, intersectional, because we have to be aware that most of the studies usually refer to women, which is true. There might be more statistics, statistically speaking, women that are usually victims of this situation. But in fact, there is also the non-reported cases, which mostly concerns to members of the LGBTQR community, so on and so forth, religious minorities. So there is an intersectional, actually, and not only a gender-based situation underlying the problem of sextortion. So I would like to move quickly to the legal and policy track. And for this part, we have the pleasure to have Yamila Venturini with us. Yamila, researcher at the Center for Technology and Society of FGV Rio, and also a member of the coalition on platform responsibility, which actually recently, only yesterday I've been informed, has launched a book which I hope is easy to get access to, but is basically focused on terms of services. So here we will have Jamila giving some comments on what have been the findings of this dynamic coalition in the IGF. And also then we will open for the panel discussion probably. Then you will be able to answer Hannah's question already on terms of services. So, floor is yours.
Perfect. Thanks, Catherine. Thank you for the invitation also and the opportunity to talk about this topic. So yes, as Nicholas was saying before, it's interesting to hear this conversation because I remember when we started interacting in the internet, the biggest concern we had was with our security, and at some point, the economy.
Okay, thank you. At some point, do you hear me? Okay. At some point, it seems like the economy of platforms or how things in the internet work changed in a way that we got used to giving our data to have access to a lot of information that are available online, right? And we do that especially or guided somehow through the terms of service, despite the fact that sometimes we don't have to explicitly accept those terms. The mere use of some web services imply the acceptance of some rules and conditions that will regulate behavior online, right? So considering that somehow what we analyzed in this study, well, considering that these terms of service are defining how we interact online and somehow how we exercise our human rights online, because internet is, as we all know, a tool for a privileged tool for the exercise of human rights, particularly access to information and freedom of expression. And also, they also define the conditions under which we will exercise these rights, in this case affecting the use of our data, for instance. And we decided to analyze the terms of use of 50 online platforms. We only analyzed the web-based platforms. We didn't analyze mobile platforms to understand how they deal with human rights, freedom of expression, privacy, and due process. It's interesting that we find that there are several rules that apply regarding privacy. There are a lot of commitments regarding the protection of user data. Already present. The privacy policies, they are detailed, they are long, they usually give somehow a notion of how this data will be used, but it's difficult to understand how this may impact on users' rights, right? How the collection of all this data may impact on users' rights. And that's because we have a language that is technical, and it's not just in a legal way. It's also a technical language regarding to computer science and the mention of several technologies that may affect our privacy and that we don't know how they really act. So it's more complicated to understand these terms than reading a common contract for other types of service. And at the same time, these terms are usually written in a way that they are broad enough to allow companies or platforms to use data in different ways without having to ask for a new consent, right? So they usually say they may track users' activities. We found that, and that's almost all platforms we analyzed bigger services, smaller services. So most of them say they may track users' activities, they may allow third parties to track users' activities, they say they may share users' data with third parties without specifying which are those third parties, under which conditions this data will be shared, and so it's mostly difficult to understand how this may impact on our privacy. There are excellent practices we observe, especially in the biggest companies, for instance, but they are mostly directed to informing user about the impacts of their privacy regarding other users, right? And it's exactly what it's more related to what we are talking about today. So, for instance, there are some tutorials, help pages, videos that try to inform users about the impacts of the information that they share, and these can be a very good practices. However, when we look at the relation between the users and platforms, that's more complicated, and the guarantees that are present in the terms are fewer. On the other hand, when we talk about freedom of expression, what we find is that the terms are smaller, they are not that long, and they are not that detailed. Usually you have several guidelines regarding which is the content that is allowed or not in a particular platform. And then most of them, 80% of them, have some mechanism for flagging abusive content. They include that in their terms, but a great part of them, it's related to the DMCA. So it's just about copyright content, and that's what you have on the terms of service. Regarding other types of content, you usually have general clauses saying that they may be taken down, but there is no transparency regarding how that will be done or under which conditions. And I'm talking about only the terms of service, privacy policies, community guidelines, and the documents that we consider that are binding to users. We're not talking about other pages or other mechanisms, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that these mechanisms do not exist. There is just no commitment in the legal document that users have to accept to interact in the platform. So there is no transparency regarding these takedown mechanisms, how they will be implemented. Not even to the potential victim of this type of abusive content, but also not to the users. But so what you find is that few platforms, or I would say in the contrary, most of the platforms say they may take down content with no notification, no justification to the affected user. And more than that, 88% of the platforms, that's 44 platforms out of 50, say they may end users' account without notifying users. So it seems like there is a problem that affects both victims and creators or users that are sharing their content. And it seems like what we need is more information and more transparency regarding that, so we can understand better how that can impact on our rights.
Thank you. That's super helpful, actually. So I'll get a look at that. And thank you for having me here. I think I'll be brief, because I think what Google has to say here, we're not here as a representative of the whole industry. Unfortunately, I just know one company. But I wanted to highlight that we do have a consistent approach across our platforms and across our products. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the other thing is that we didn't operate about this particular issue without information. We actually went and sat down with advocates, with victim groups, and we really tried to understand where this problem was coming from. When the first terms of services for search or for any of our products were created, revenge porn wasn't really there. So the phenomena that comes over and over the internet has to necessarily feed back into the product. So we try to take the time to be here to talk to groups like the ones you lead to understand how the product can be adapted. So we have no tolerance whatsoever for revenge porn. We take it very seriously in our platform. So we have a system where you can ask for that content to be removed. So that's on our removal policies. Actually, you can find that as one of the sensitive contents that we consider. And we don't allow it to be shared in the rest of the platform. So Blogger, Google+. So once this is asked for by you or by someone to be taken down, it's reviewed and it's taken down, and it's not allowed to be shared across the platforms. I will highlight, though, that removing it from Google search does not remove it from the internet, okay? So we also have a mechanism for you, or to try to make it easier for you to contact our site's webmaster, because if this image or this video lives in another person's website, as a search engine, we're responsible for indexing that information, but we can't really go out into the internet and remove things. That's not, we don't have access, and we really can't do that. So, but we do try to give you information on how to contact a website's master, a website's webmaster, to follow through on that particular request. I do think that we all agree that search and these type of platforms should reflect the web, and these examples of what gets taken down should be considered really carefully by communities like this one and by dialogues like this one. So I think personally identifiable information, so if you find that your credit card information was somehow posted in a website that's indexed, that can be removed. And the same way, that's how we got to the revenge porn. We don't only review the request, but we also demote on search, so on the ranking in search, the websites that have been known or have been denounced to have put revenge porn out there. And I think that you should also think about the rest of the way we think about this is we don't allow pornographic content in general in our platforms. We don't make money from it. That we don't allow advertisement for pornographic websites, and we take sexual and violent content also out of the autocomplete function in search, because we do believe that there's a role here to play. There's obviously, you talked a lot about how much information we disclose. Then there's a responsibility of those that distribute some of that information without consent. So that those are two sides of the problem. And then the platforms sort of in the middle, say receiving, or letting things through, because that's what we were created for, to let the flow of information get from the creators to the users and vice versa. And I think what I wanted you to take away is our responsibility to be here, to talk, to gather the information, to take it in, and to try to improve all the time on these practices. I don't know if you're going to talk a little bit about sort of the legislations, because you mentioned this. You mentioned crime a few times, right? And I don't think it's very clear yet in all the countries, across all the jurisdictions, what the crime is defined. So on the platform side, I guess what I wanted to highlight was the importance of having very clear definitions of what you're considering revenge porn in this case, if you're penalizing the content creation, the lack of consent to distribute it, how to handle content for commercial purposes. Those types of things would be really helpful to have in domestic legislations or in an agreement, because that really puts the sort of crosses the T and puts the dot on the I's of what we need to be looking at in those community guidelines in the end. So, and obviously, I think all of you would defend freedom of expression and sort of making sure that these definitions do not conflict with that right. So I will leave it there.
Thank you. I just want to highlight something relating to violence against women and the issue of revenge porn or sextortion. Men are also subject to that. And I think we have to bring that up somehow here, so we're not a little bit too concerned about only one part of the problem. When it comes to legislation, I think legislation is going to help in some contexts, but not others. In the Middle East, for example, we definitely cannot probably aim for a legislation against, revenge porn or sex tortures, because the perception of the society, the culture, the religion, and a lot of things, there are a lot of elements in the mix. The terms of use, I'm going to go back to that. And I think the terms of use or the conditions under which internet companies usually operate, I don't think they're sufficient in the current state. So let's not focus on the regulation now, because we need to find more a solution that we can scale to different regions. The terms of use are a little bit neutral. If you look at them very quickly, you don't see, you see things like, oh, if you're a sex offender, you can't open an account on Facebook. But you know, you make the assumption that you only have the clean people on Facebook. That's not the case. Just an example, and this is applicable to many other services. I think we have to get more serious when it comes to, well, taking down content from these platforms, because I don't agree 100% with that. Because taking down content, and again, in the context of the Middle East, means something completely different. We'll be talking about censorship and so on. So it's a little bit a sensitive issue as well. As I said, it would be really, I think, more useful if platforms are more efficient, filtering through that content more seriously. At the moment, we see a lot of disturbing videos that are not being kind of addressed. I'm part of a mailing list where all these cases are actually being disclosed from victims and also from other communities like LGBT community, like political, all kind of people at the moment are trying to see a better way to moderate, you know, this kind of content on internet companies' platforms. So I really call for a more comprehensive rules or guidelines for people to use these platforms.
If I can add to that, one of the biggest sources of sextortion is your platform, YouTube, as you probably know. And YouTube is very well in removing the material as soon as it's flagged, but the chances of it being uploaded again are always there. Now, we have perfectly very good technical possibilities like photo DNA or hashes to prevent this from being re-uploaded, uploaded again. And I would really ask Google and Facebook and every other platform to start using those techniques. Because, like I said, this is a really serious crime. It threatens people, it costs lives, and I think you should take your responsibility here.
All right, so just to run up, is there any question on the, okay. First here, and
sure.
then...
Sure. Claudio Lucena, Paraíba State University, another Brazilian in the game. I would just like to build on the argument that was made by the senator here. I think we're pretty, if not solved, but we have an idea of where we're going with awareness. We also have an idea where we're going with the search for legal remedy. And now, towards the end of the panel, we discuss something which is really essential, which is the technical response. We can't rely on this is not humanly traceable. What happens here is not humanly traceable. And we have, again, building up on the argument, extremely interesting and effective tools. Content ID, for example, has an interesting mechanism to filter intellectual property breaches. So we're discussing now how to automate responses to hate speech. We're discussing how to make responses to the search of the truth in the last days. So why are we not working a little bit more in automating responses? Because time matters, and it matters a lot here. And this is destroying the lives of not only, but also of women and girls and women all over the world.
Hi, I'm Ludovic van der Laan. I serve on the ICANN board, but my question is more to my previous incarnation as a lawyer and a politician. Because as Arda Gerken said, this is a serious crime and it's costing lives. But I understand that actually it's not a crime in many countries, or it's not clearly defined. So are there any plans from your network, from all the people here, to very concretely start working to make it a crime, a clearly defined prosecutable crime in every single country in the world, so that where there's this cross-border effect that the victim is in one country, the perpetrator is another, we don't get caught up in endless jurisdictional discussions, and we can very quickly make sure not only to help the victim or to prevent if possible, but really then to go to the next thing, which is to, and I see a member of the European Parliament is going to fix that for us. Thanks.
I can't fix it everywhere, but I can raise my voice. I'm on the FEM committee in the European Parliament. I'm a British Labour politician, and I work a lot on this issue, the issue of online violence. And actually, we do have an instrument in Europe, and it's called the Istanbul Convention. And even my country, the UK, has not ratified this, right? So, and I just heard yesterday that the Polish government, we now have a much more right-wing Polish government, they are going to actually pull out of the Istanbul Convention. So it was, you know, I think it was 2014 it was agreed. Some countries, some unexpected countries have signed it and are doing really, really well. And some countries that ought to know better are doing really, really badly. A friend of mine in Slovenia, who is a women's rights campaigner, said her government said they couldn't sign it because it was too expensive. And our response to that has to be that the cost is women's lives. And well, yeah, I know, but the Istanbul Convention is specifically about women here. Okay, so I'm not. You know, I'm on the Gender Equality Committee, so we're working with gender and violence issues across a whole load of different platforms. But I just wanted to say there is an instrument. There is an instrument. And we are now still in the 16 days of the campaign to eliminate violence against women and girls. So you need to raise your voices, and you need to be in touch with your governments and tell them that the cost is women's lives. So they have to do something about it. They have to do more than just sign it. They have to ratify it, and then they have to implement it. And then you have to hold them to account.
Okay, thank you for the, this has more a remark rather than a question. However, I have to also add to this that currently the Budapest Convention as well could be a framework of protection as long as, obviously, there is a criminalization of this behavior in the national level. So it has limitations. I also want to add that there has been concrete criminalization norms started in Philippines, Australia, and moved towards mostly Israel, Canada, recently US. Many states in the US have criminalized extortion, or as they call it, revenge porn law. Recently Ireland has added his own legislation to the list. However, as most of the panelists have already asserted, the criminalization of extortion also has challenges and limitations. Flows such as the narrow or very broad definition of the behavior that is criminalized can be also a situation that arises a challenge. But also, do not forget that as extortion was, or revenge porn was defined, it was only mostly focused on the ex-partner, and that has been also been reflecting on the current, recent, upcoming regulation, criminalization of this behavior. I think I have final comments on these from my panelists, so I will give the floor to them before we finish this session. Thank you.
I just wanted to react very quickly. I guess you said most of what I was thinking, but I believe there is a great challenge, and it's not a simple criminalize, do not criminalize, take down, do not take down kind of solution. And we have we can't forget that any type of action or regulation that we have on the internet may affect the whole internet environment. I mean, we do believe that we have to discuss how intermediaries may be responsible for these type of things, but we have to be very careful in drafting or thinking about solutions, because they may affect our possibility of communicating or accessing information online. That was my final remark.
I'd also like to add on Hanane's remarks and talk about also enforcement of the law. I'm coming from Turkey, so it's a real problem that the one fact it's that not defined in law, but even when it is, it's almost impossible to have it enforced. And we are discussing removing punishments for rapists in certain countries. So it's very, very difficult to have law enforcement take seriously when someone goes to them and says, oh, someone is sharing a video or an image of me that I'm not consenting to the sharing. So I think we really need to remember the problem of enforcement on this problem. And also, finally, I'd like to say that creating more public awareness in these regions is very important, because it's really not being taken seriously and not being considered as a crime, no matter what the law says or doesn't say.
And we will give the floor finally to one of the participants that has been raising their hand for a long time there. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you. So I think when we are speaking about sextortion, we need to also speak about rape videos. It is a major issue in India. These are actually videos of actual rapes which are filmed by the rapists. And these videos are then sold at shops and further used for extortion. It's important to remember here that there is like violation of consent on 3 levels. It's the rape itself, the filming, as well as the distribution. And when we speak about, and here, as you can see, it's not self-disclosure per se, which is leading to sextortion. These are other factors which lead to that. And I think it's a very important point to remember. And it's such a big issue in India that even the Supreme Court has ordered an investigation into this. And to respond to the lady over there, yes, men are subjected to revenge porn, but I think it's important to remember the nuance here, because the cost of it is different for them, the frequency is different, and the extent is different. And it's also important to remember what kind of men are subjected to revenge porn. It's usually gay men, it's usually trans men, young boys. That's my opinion. Then that's all. Thank you.
The last 2 years, we saw a rise from boys up to 50% of all the reports we get, men and boy being sextorted. And we're talking about 14-year-old kids to 70-year-old men. So this is also a very serious problem for men. The video, if they don't pay, so it's financial extortion, if they don't pay up, the videos being sent to their bosses, they lost their jobs, they lose their wives, they lose their friends and families. It's very disruptive. And like I said, I think last week the report came out that 3 men already killed themselves because of this in the UK. So I think we should really consider this is a crime which is very serious to women and men both.
So a quick reflection. Maybe the solution to the issue is not on the internet or with internet companies. We have to look at the subject also from the sociological, point of view. And I've read something recently in the Netherlands that basically about sex education. It starts from there, in my opinion. It's not about opening an account on Facebook or Google Plus or so on. The kids who are very close to their parents, they engage in sexual activity at a later stage. And I think people who engage in revenge porn and these activities, they are, I think personally, there is a percentage of them that are not sexually educated, or that, they went probably through traumas and so on. So we have to bring a stakeholder, from the socio, even cultural point of view to discuss these issues, because I see, some kind of connection with that as well. So maybe we have to look outside the internet fora for the solution as well.
So finally, to run up, before we close the session, we have the last question or remark.
Yeah, and very related to what you said just some moments ago. Of course, raping videos are not self-disclosure, but my point is that perpetrators very oftenly get in touch with their victims using their social media profiles. So they have all the information there just to get in touch with you and engage with you, and therefore commit this crime. And I was hearing today and the day before a lot about connectivity. How can we promote connectivity in these parts of the world that do not have internet access and so on? And I think that on one side this is excellent, but we have to prepare new online new members of the internet regarding their privacy. And I think that I'm trying to fight in that direction very seriously.
I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear when I was saying.
No. I totally understand it.
They don't meet the survivors through social media. These are actual rape videos, like they
I totally understand the concept.
Social media doesn't play a bit.
Those are two different things. That one leads to the other in some cases. But what you just said, it's very close, but it requires other measurements.
No, technology plays a role here only in the filming and the distribution. It doesn't play a role in the perpetrators meeting the women or the survivors involved. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so we want to thank once again the Netherlands Internet Governance Forum for bringing us together in this discussion, as well as women in cybersecurity in the Netherlands. And finally, we're obviously to all our panelists, please follow up the discussions on Twitter, but also follow up the report that we're going to submit after the this IGF session. So we will have a report online, and you could see the conclusions that will be raised there. Thank you very much.
Also, a report of the session will be on the Digital Watch Observatory at the end of the day.